I crashed my first car, rolled over 5 times at 80 miles an hour. And so hit a telephone pole, started to go sideways, car rolled 5 times, landed in poison ivy and caught poison ivy. So I was like, yeah, thanks God. There is a God. I don't think he likes me.
Everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I'm with an exciting individual, Steve Noack of TrinityQuantumHealth.com. He had a near-death experience when he was very young. He actually got ran over by a car, and he's here to tell us all of these interesting details and who he met when he was out of his body. So stay tuned for this one. Let's jump right in. How are you today, Steve?
How's it going? I'm pretty good.
I'm blessed. I'm exhausted, just rocking and rolling, getting the interviews done, learning so much, working on the background here, making it a great day every day. So meeting you is fantastic. Actually, we had a hour-long phone call. For anyone that's watching, they don't know, we basically got to know each other on the phone for an hour yesterday. You did a little exercise at the end for me, which helped me calm down and relax. I could feel healing, for lack of a better word. And I'm actually feeling a lot better today after that exercise we did over the phone. So I want to say thank you in advance for doing that.
Hey, you bet. I think what I experienced is for everybody. Like, I'm nobody special. I believe this is our natural state, is to be unified beings and not to be trapped in our experiences, because that's not who we are. So.
Absolutely. I could feel I was carrying mentally the weight of a lot of negative experiences that have happened to me. And I'm sure you know who Dr. Joe Dispenza is.
Mm-hmm.
He says people have like the same 90% same thoughts every day in and day out.
Yeah.
And that's weighs them down. Or so he doesn't say those literal words, but I just felt like I needed to be in a meditative space. And I grew up very traditional. You just say your prayers before bed or pray when you need something. And that's not the same, would you say, that's not the same as being in a constant communicative state with higher consciousness, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I would say it's lacking some love and truth. And so, like anything I do in my life, I'm kind of the observer. Am I putting love and truth into this? Because I could do the same thing 9,000 times. Like I just had a client today, and we were talking about prayer, and he's like, I prayed the rosary 1,000 times. But are you doing it with love and truth, or are you doing it just in a mechanical way? So I think those things make a big difference.
Or is there even a scripture verse that relates to that? I'm not Bible boy, but like a verse comes to my mind where Jesus says, when you pray, don't go on with vain repetitions. So it's like, maybe don't say the same sentence a thousand times. Maybe it's not going to help you that much.
And I learned, like, when I pray, that I pray as if it's already finished, and then I let it go.
I love it.
I get it into a feeling that it's already done. The harder part is convincing our body, because your subconscious mind will go, no, it's not. And,
right.
So there's where you need some modulation.
Well, there's a good way to gauge your own faith, your own level of faith. Like if you say it one time and you really believe it, your faith must be strong because you only needed to say it once. If you have to keep repeating it to convince yourself, then isn't your faith kind of wavering? But if you just say it one time and it comes to pass, then you're manifesting, right?
Yep, exactly. You're completing the agreement between the conscious and subconscious mind. So you're going to render that reality, because we're the energy being living inside the nervous system, and then we arrange data, and then we interface with reality. So I want to make it complete there so that it renders itself into my options or existence. Yeah. Learning to communicate to the body as if something's already finished, super important to self-healing.
Learning to communicate to the body as if it's already finished.
Yep. And I will not negotiate that. And so what I walk my clients through is I ask them silly questions. Do you know how to tie your shoes? Yeah, of course I do. Do you know how to make coffee? Of course I do. How would you feel if I said I didn't believe you? Most of them kind of feel the firmness of, I'm not willing to negotiate this. However, they never associate that with their identity, where I'm not willing to negotiate my identity with my emotions, my subconscious mind, the world. I already am. And then I will move from that position And that gives me a lot more freedom to navigate through emotional reality without getting stuck in it. And that's the big deal, is the attachment and vulnerability we still have in our identity, especially when it's still attached to the earth, and the things we did and the roles we played. And it's the age old question: who was I before my parents named me? Who was I before I got a name? And I got interested in knowing that, especially after my experiences.
Well, why don't we go back in time to about age 4? And I know you've shared your story a few times, but let's go once again for the viewing audience here at My Spirit Lives On. And if there's any details you feel like adding, go ahead, take as long as you need, and then we can jump into some questions.
Sure. Well, I was 4 years old. I was across the street from my house. My brother came to the other side of the street and he said, "It's time to go home." We were actually going to the mall. And so, toy bells lit off in my head. And I was at the top of the slope driveway and I just shot down in between two parked cars. And then that's when a woman who was coming down the road hit me. She didn't know she had hit me because she was drinking and I was so small. And so she didn't know she hit me. So she actually kept going. And I kind of went further under the car. The only thing that saved me, I was told, was my big wheel, which I was riding. I was riding a little plastic big wheel, shot down the driveway, went underneath the car. And what it was like for me was like a blur. And then instantly I'm looking at myself, above myself. I actually watched my eyes roll on the back of my head. And when that happened, it was like everything faded to black and then it opened up again. And when it opened up, I was a bit, I guess you could say, confused. I was like, what happened? And so I'm sitting on someone and I'm leaning on them and I kind of have my head down and I open my eyes and I know the very first thing I see is hair that's like almost touching the ground. It's like silvery white. And I notice the bottom of a robe. And I noticed these two things and I turn thinking this is a person still, to ask this person what happened. And it was a being of light in a hooded robe that had no face. There was only light where their face should be, which kind of paused me for a moment. Um, I turned and I asked what happened. And that's when the being said, "You were in an accident. Put your head down. Everything's going to be all right." And when I did that, I put my head down on this being's chest. At first, I'm kind of like to the side, and now I'm kind of like looking at them, but I'm looking around as well, and I could see energetic structure of everything. It was like looking at the blueprint of a building before the building gets built. And it was just all there around me, like a translucent bluish energetic structure. And so I put my head down. I noticed that, and I'm kind of staring at this being's face. And I just have some quick passing thoughts like, how did I talk without talking? I'm slowly pulled, and it almost felt like being stretched like a rubber band, where I was still here, but I was being stretched out in a way. And I'm now going into the light of this being's face. And so I travel for a moment. I'm not sure how long it was. And then the scene just materializes in front of me, and I'm standing in it. And it's probably the most perfect nature scene you could imagine times 100,000. Everything was so crystal clear and vibrant. The flowers and the colors, I still haven't seen flowers or colors like that today. The flowers and the colors were alive. It's like the colors were their own beings and they were vibrating. And I noticed them just moving through the flowers, kind of, I guess, giving fragrance or something like that. But I noticed the flowers and I noticed how vibrant and crystal clear it feels. And I still tell people it's like living in a glass tube TV and then you went right into a high definition TV. That to me is alive. This is different, being in a body. That to me is being alive. So everything is so crystal clear and vibrant. I'm noticing paths and rivers and flowers and mountains and meadows. And I'm starting to get the feeling of this place where it's just starting to feel like you're a child before a birthday or a Christmas holiday times 100 million. So I'm starting to feel the feeling of this place, and I notice people. There's like people in various places, and they're playing, just like having fun. And I'm starting to get the vibe that this is the greatest carnival on earth. Like, this is the greatest celebration ever. And I notice an elderly man and a little girl off to my left. Not sure who they were, if I knew them or not, but the little girl lets out a laugh, and the laugh goes through the air, and it comes right to the center of my chest, and it touches me. And in that instant, I knew that pain or suffering or hate couldn't exist there. It wasn't that it didn't, it actually couldn't. It couldn't form function. And I got that kind of a download where you had to be the right frequency, love, to be here. And that it was my home. It was where I came from. It's where everything came from. And eventually everything would return to. And so as soon as I got that hit, I'm like, I'm home. I'm like, I want to stay here. And then that's when I hear the being speak to me, who's kind of like back behind me, say, not yet. We have other things to show you. And then it's like somebody just pulled the curtain away of a Broadway scene I was in and watching. And when that love touched me, it was no longer me looking at it. It actually became me. And then that's when I knew I had made it back home. And so what I was viewing and seeing and feeling suddenly just became everything I was. And so the being says, not yet. It's like somebody pulled the curtain aside, and suddenly I'm standing in this like dark room, but it's more like a night sky without stars. It's not quite pitch black, but it's kind of like a dark room. And the first thing I see is lines that start to form in front of me, and they're going straight down and straight across like a grid. And I think now, what's that? And I'm answered. The being's no longer with me. I'm just being answered. And that's when I hear the being say, this is the quantum field. This connects all living beings together as one. Like, okay. And I just pretty much walk through this accepting what they tell me. And I'll talk about that in a little while, how it comes to fruition later. But this is the quantum field. This is what connects all living beings together as one. And then these lines just fade away. And then I notice something glowing up and to the left, and it looks like a credit card, and it's missing a corner, and it has circuits on it. And I think to myself, what's that? And that's when the being answers and says, this is your divine blueprint. This is the original image that you were made in. Everyone has one of these. Okay. Later, I would figure out how useful that would be in my healing. So that fades away. The next thing I see is a column of light that just drops down in front of me. And I think, what's that? And then the being answers and says, this is you as you enter reality, and you will spend your energy to have a material experience in the world. And when the being said, spend your energy, I see energy leave this column of light, like these little cords almost, and they're going to something. So I'm like, what are they going to? And I see this screen that's kind of 3/4 around me. And I notice at the end of the screen, it almost looks like little TV sets. And they had memories in them. And they were being deposited in this screen. Later, I learned, about the Akashic records and all that stuff. But again, I was 4. So I see this screen. I notice the energy leaving this column of light to be deposited in this screen. That's when the being says, this is like a life review, but you won't have yours now. You'll have yours while you're alive. And people don't need to die to have a life review. So I'm like, okay. And I notice there's beings up above the screen, just kind of sitting above. And I didn't know I didn't ask. I didn't know what they were doing there. I assumed they were some type of judges, something of that sort, but I didn't feel judged or anything. Again, I was 4. I'm like walking through this dumbfounded. Um, and so then the being talks about the life review. They said you won't need to die to have your life review. You will call this ascension, is what the being also said. You'll call this ascension. Um, and so that fades away. That little projection experience or whatever I was in. And then the very last thing, and probably the most important thing that happened, was this triangle that was just coming towards me and getting bigger and bigger and bigger until it stops in front of me. And I could see a point on each tip and one larger one in the center where they all fed into. It's like each tip was feeding into the center. And I think, what's that? And then I hear the being say, this is Father, Mother, Son. You'll make these 3 one.
This is Father, Mother, and Son, and they must become one.
Many, many years I had no idea what that meant. Later I learned it was about polarity and non-duality and a bunch of other things. Um, so that's when the being tells me about this Trinity, which later in life I also learned was called a triangle singularity, which is a very advanced quantum physics theory. So it's probably important to note to your viewers, I did not go to college. All this stuff just hit me, and I had to integrate it into my life and learn how to be a normal human being. So I have this experience with the triangle. They tell me this is the Trinity, Father, Mother, Son. You'll make these 3 one. That fades away, and the next thing I know is I wake up, and a couple days later, I was in pretty bad shape. I had broken ribs, broken collarbone, broken shoulder blade, collapsed lungs. The whole side of my body was road rash from getting dragged. Um, but I wake up and I ask my parents what happened. And they're like, you were in an accident. I'm like, no, there's something else happened. And what I tell people from the ages of like 4 to 11, it was like knowing you had lunch last month on a Wednesday, but you might not be able to remember what you had for lunch. And that's what it felt like it was with me. I would think about it, my body would start to react. And so I knew something had happened very different. Um, and then that's when I would, between those ages, I would start to have these visions. And I didn't realize they were related, of this line that went through the center of everyone's chest on Earth. And it connected all people. And some people were lit up like light bulbs and some were not. And I used to draw this, and I'd have this frequent vision of this line connecting all people. And some people were kind of lit up like light bulbs and some were not. And so that would occur. I would have other visions where my parents actually brought me to an eye doctor to see what was wrong, because it was like my vision would just scramble out of nowhere and then it would return. And I didn't have anything wrong, of course. So about 11, I start to get the memories coming back. And I'm like, holy cow, that's what happened. And it was a real coming into validation for me that I knew I had experienced something. So I tried to talk about it, and that was a big mistake because I realized how quickly it made me feel even more awkward than I was, more judged than I already was. And so I learned to tell myself it's just what happens when you die. It's just something that happens when you die. And I don't need to revisit it. It's in the past, is what I told myself, which never even existed. So there is no past. So that was impossible. So I stuffed it away.
Not that you're keeping a tally, but like around how many people did you try to share this with? Like your immediate family and maybe 5 or 6 friends, or was
Yeah,
that, and
probably less
then,
friends and family, like my parents, and then a couple friends. And then it just, the way it made me feel to talk about it, I just didn't feel like I should talk about it.
okay.
And so I learned to hide it. But, that's what you do in order to stay normal and accepted and validated. these memories start to come back of sitting with this being, the things we talked about, and they just start to come in probably like my puberty years, I guess you could say. It was like I started to have the recollection. I told maybe one or two partners, who knows, maybe that's what went wrong, but I told one or two partners throughout the course of my life, who I've had relationships with. And I don't know, I just always felt taboo in a way. I
Hmm.
guess from a young age of feeling shame from talking about it, or weak. I don't know what it was, but I learned to hide it. The memories come back. I learned to hide that after I started to talk about it, and I figured, okay, it's just what happens when you die. I don't even know if there is a God.
Or maybe
And
maybe
yeah,
your subconscious mind perhaps was like trying to give you a warning, like, hey, you can share it, but people just aren't going to get it. So this is really meant for you to hold
yeah,
on to and utilize, even though it's
yeah,
going to be hard to hold it all in. Like if you won the lottery and you're so excited, can most
yep,
people keep that to themselves? Like, I don't know. Like there's
yeah.
going to be signs, right? So
And
you had this
that's
experience.
what it felt like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And there's going to be
that
signs that
is
you're
what it
having this
felt like.
experience because you're gifted now, right?
Yeah, now there's the fruit. So that goes back to, and you will know them by their fruit.
Mm.
And so I look at NDE experiencers and I love to see the changes in their lives and others from the experience. That's what validates it for me. Um, so now I shut it down. I learned not to talk about it. I crashed. So I was already run over by a car. I was already a pretty daredevil type of kid,
Mm.
breaking bones and whatnot. So I crashed my first car, rolled over 5 times at 80 miles an hour. And so hit a telephone pole, started to go sideways, car rolled 5 times, landed in poison ivy and caught poison ivy. So I was like, yeah, thanks God. God, if there is a God, I don't think he likes me, he or she, because of my experience at 4, no answers about what it all meant, and then this tremendous amount of pain and suffering that followed. So I became pretty skeptical, to be honest with you. Maybe it's just what happens when we die. And that's what I told myself. And and so I crashed that car. I crashed 2 more motorcycles. I have a few other bad car accidents that were friends and not me. So by the time I was 30, 35, I felt like I was 60. And I would get up, I'd try to go to work, and I'd be in so much pain that I'd have to take pain medication. And that became my dependence, just to be able to get up and function and go to work. And I was at the darkest point in my life when everything turned around in pretty much an instant. It took a while to integrate it, but it was like boom. And so I don't know if you want me to go into the story about the being returning.
Oh, I would love to hear that. Yeah, I thought the turning point might have been what we said on the phone with the GameStop and the healing energy on the old woman, but
Oh
let's
yeah,
go.
that was after the beings returned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm okay with it if you are. Asking the audience to keep an open mind because Steve's experience is unique to him, and I really don't think anyone who's coming on to share their true NDE experience has a reason to lie to the audience. Maybe there's one or two people out there that want 15 minutes of fame, but of course, I just think someone's playing with fire if they're lying about divine encounters. And so let's keep our ears open. And Steve, go ahead, share that part of the story.
Yeah, and on that note, I would say go read any of the hundreds of testimonials that it wasn't me that does this or me that did this. Like I have no claim to whatever happened through me. Um, and yeah, I don't want to be famous, dude. I want to help people feel the love that I felt returned to me and the heaven in my body so that they can heal and know what it's like to feel the love of Christ in them.
That's
And
awesome.
so it's important to note that my parents were not religious. Nobody brought me to church. None of this stuff happened with a religious background in place. So I had nothing to reference it from. So I'm walking through it raw and naked, never encountering any of these subjects. So I'm going to have elbow surgery. At this time, I'm at a pretty bleak point in my life. I'm riddled by pain. I'm waking up like the Tin Man. Um, go to have elbow surgery, and I get there and I sit down, and I hadn't had medication yet or anything. I was just getting there, and I had this feeling of panic just grip me, and I never had a panic attack in my life, but I felt like I had to get up and go, and I don't know why. So I went to sit up, and when I went to sit up, something stopped me. I couldn't sit up any further or leave, and then something warm started moving around inside my body, and it started in the center and it spread out all around me like it had just engulfed me, and it was warm, and it was like the most perfect love that I had ever felt. And then that's the first time that I started to feel that heavenly place again. And so as this warming, this love happens, it literally sits me back down. That's how powerful it was. I couldn't control it. It just sat me back down. And then that's when I hear the being again for the first time in 25, 30 years say, Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. Almost the same exact sentence they said to me at 4. And I immediately recognized who it was. And I said, holy blank.
Mm-hmm.
That was the being from my NDE, except the holy blank came in because it was real and I was alive and I was awake, and it wasn't something I could push away anymore. It had suddenly just again entered my life. So when the being said that, it was like some type of energetic reaction happened in my body when I made the recognition. It was like somebody hit rewind on a tape reel. I could see memories going behind my eyes like this, and I felt these energetic surges of emotions. It could be sadness, anger, blank, 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 but it was just like a slot machine had gone off. And so I calmed down and I'm trying to process it. I still have to go in and have elbow surgery to clear scar tissue from an elbow. And I calm myself down, said I'll worry about this later. And I go in and I have the surgery and I come out. And about a day or two later, that's when I'm woken up in the middle of the night with these balls of light in my room. And it looked like, if I could say, it looked like plasma almost, orbs or something. And the first night there was one, the next couple of nights there was a couple more, and they were just like barely moving. And they were the size of like a softball. And so when I first saw it, I'm like, turning on all the lights, turning off all the lights. Again, I'm a skeptic, natural born skeptic. If there is something out there, you got to show me. And I still didn't believe it, even while they were showing me. And so I'm kind of like the reluctant healer in a way because I was very stubborn. It wasn't until I had nothing left where I just gave my life over. I'm like, all right, remake me.
Hmm.
So I'm turning on and off the lights, opening the shades. I'm like, no, that's something there. And I didn't know what it was, but you can only stay up so many nights until 3 or 4 in the morning before you have to go to bed. Because at the time, I was a manager at a video game store. I had to go to work. So over the next couple of weeks, I start to have psychic things happening at work where I would have someone walk in and I'd be, generally okay. And I would have just this big waft of pain would start in a certain part of my body. And they would leave and it would go away. And then I was starting to hear people's thoughts. Like I would have conversation going on in my mind, but it wasn't me starting it. And it was just like overhearing a conversation. And so eventually I started to play games where I would ask someone in my mind, do you want a bag with that? And then I would ask them out loud and I would see if it matched. And then that's when I kind of got, okay, this is something else going on because it was accurate. And then I started to have like these emotions that would just rush through me. I would start laughing out loud for no reason. I would start crying for no reason, and I didn't know why I was doing it. I was just at the work doing at the wall at work doing marketing. I'm not thinking about anything. Yet this energy would rush through me and things would happen. Next couple of days, I notice I'm seeing like this rainbow energy in different places that I would go. It just looked like a partially broken rainbow here, one there, one there. And I start to notice more of it around people, around me. Eventually, it got really kind of invasive with the psychic stuff. And I'm starting to like, geez, am I losing my mind here? And that's when I have like some sort of time displacement where I went to the gas station, and this was happening for a couple days, and I'm standing in line, and I'm waiting to pay for gas, and there's a man and his son in line, and the son gets out of line and asks for a candy bar, and the father says okay. He gets back in line, and then he does the same thing again, and like, he didn't ask for another one, and he didn't have two. I'm like, what just happened? And so I'm like, all right, brush it off, go back to my car. I start my car after pumping the gas, and it's the radio. And there's a woman on the radio, and she wins this contest, and they're talking about the answer to the question. All of a sudden, the phone is ringing. It was just like click, phone's ringing, and it's the woman. They ask her the question, but I knew it because I just heard it like 10 seconds ago, except I was in it. It wasn't a deja vu. I was in it. I knew the answer because I had just heard them on the radio. And I'm like, what is going on? And then that's the day where I thought, maybe I need to check myself in somewhere. But I didn't. I went back to work. Over the next couple days, I'm noticing apparitions around me. They're just moving back and forth constantly. And at first, it's just little bits. And then they're like, eventually, like a few weeks later, they're full-blown silhouettes of people. Some were smoky, some were dark, some were light, just moving around all the time. And I thought I was being haunted. I didn't know what was happening. And that's when I have, I guess, some of the first contact with these beings coming back to me. They show up in my room. I'm just sitting there, and I'm pretty distraught here, trying to figure out what's going on and keep my mind focused on just being a dad, going to work. So I'm sitting there eating a bowl of Cheerios. I notice something appear in the corner of my room, and it looks like a faint rainbow, and it's kind of cloaky, like if anybody's ever seen the cloaking in the Predator, when the Predator does it. It looks like that, but it's a really faint rainbow. But I could feel the pressure on my body. I could feel everything change. Notice this in the corner of the room. And that's when these beings announce themselves as, we're the Galactic Federation of Light. We're the Divine Council of Nine, and we're here to help you in your ascension process because you'll help guide humanity in its next stage of evolution. And I'm like, what? And that's basically I basically told them to kick rocks. I said, I'm pretty sure you got the wrong guy here. And I didn't want to talk to anything because I wasn't sure what was happening at that moment. So I was pushing everything away. So as I tell them to basically leave me alone, they tell me about some of the things I'm going through in this one small short phrase. They said, reality is not happening to you, it's happening through you. And you're a divine instrument, but you're out of tune. You need to have your thoughts match how you feel, and how you feel match how you act. And then they left. And then I literally picked up my phone and went, Galactic Federation of Light, Divine Council of Nine. I'm like, all right, well, maybe that was real. Maybe there's something to it. But still wasn't convinced. Now, through the actions of what they had told me, I began to have turnings in my mind. I'm like, yeah, they're right. I am in control of this. It's not something outside of me that's attacking me or that I'm not in control of. And so that was like their first visitation. The second one, they started to talk about the world events that would happen and how humanity would change. And I would see things that I wouldn't understand. And this was before COVID and all that. there was a feeling of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Let me just throw that out there. There was a feeling of like pestilence and famine and war. And I was starting to get these biblical references that were creeping into my daily routine. Like I would go somewhere and I would notice this and I would notice that and I would overhear this and overhear that. And a lot of it was angelic and Jesus and those things. And like I said, I had never been to church. And so I'm like, what's going on here? What's going on? That's when I have probably one of the bigger events of my life experience where I'm still in a state of kind of wanting to give up, but I'm now going through this. And how do I handle that? Plus this. And that's where I was at the time. I'm driving home and I'm beating myself up and I'm being real hard on myself about all my failures. And that's when I hear a voice off to my right. And again, I was still apprehensive about anything. I just wanted to be left alone. I had a hard enough time being normal. So I hear this voice telling me how beautiful I am. All these people that love me and all these things that I had done. And they were just reminding me of all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's different. And the voice was very crystal clear. And I say to the voice, who are you? And it's off to my right and I'm driving. And as soon as I say, who are you? Voice answers and it says, I am. And my response is, yeah, I am who? And this is literally our exchange. And then the voice just says, I am. And I say, I heard you the first time. I am who? And then one more time, just, I am. And it was like somebody hit me with a stun gun. And all of a sudden, instantly, I didn't think about anything. It was like a reflex. I started to bawl and cry and cry. And every memory that I had ever had started replaying. It was like if you were to think of a memory you had. It was like that, except they were going at a million miles an hour without me thinking about it, like rewind on a tape reel. That started to happen, and I felt every single emotion that I'd ever had in my life and saw every single memory at the same time, but separate. And that's the only way I can tell people accurately how it happened. It was happening at the same time, but I felt them separately. And as soon as that happened, I pulled the car over into like this dirt lot and I finished crying and crying and crying. And I just didn't know what had happened. So I get home and I type in the words I am, and there's all this stuff associated with God about it. And I'm like, okay, that was strange. But what did it mean? There was always, what did it mean? What do you want? What did it mean? So I started to go to churches. Like after work, I would go into work and I'd go to a church and I'd try to talk to them about it. They didn't really know what was going on. Of course, the second time the Arcturians, the Galactic Federation, Divine Council came back, they were also talking about harvesting of our quantum energy and kind of like this war for our energy in another dimension where people are harvested from based on time, the fact that they're trapped in the past, the fact that they're manipulated in their identity and their emotions. So they were telling me about these beings, or archons, I think some refer to them, that want to harvest our energy. And that I needed to basically start working on overcoming the 7 deadly sins, or the most basic instincts. And as they would visit me, I would start sweating like crazy. And so I would have these dreams where I'd be on ships. I'd be in a white suit. I'd have no hair. The very first dream was in a medical bay, and they told me that they had to do something to me before they could let me go through other parts of the ship. And it was all white, and it was all smooth, and it was all clean. And I was in these other areas where they had these very advanced souls ready to log in to the human experience. And they were showing me them in like pods. And when I walked by them, I could feel the intelligence on me. And when I say feel, if you've ever woken up from a dream and still had the residue of that dream in you, it was like that, like on steroids. And so the only night I'd wake up covered in sweat were when I was on those ships and having those dreams. And so I tried to talk to about some of that with the people at church. I'm like, how do you not know there's a war for our energy taking place? Heaven is within. There's literally a war in heaven right now happening inside me. And they weren't too, keen on to get into the depth of that. But
Yeah, I can imagine you get some funny stares with that.
yeah, how do you know? How do you not know that you are being attacked right now?
Yeah.
You're
I've asked a few questions in church. They got me funny stares as well.
yeah, yeah. And that was the only time I would go to church. And sometimes the door would be locked and I'd sit outside on the steps like crying
Oh
because I
yeah.
really needed somebody to talk to. So
Oh yeah.
after the I am experience, I started to go get Bibles. I started to get Gnostic books. I went and got the Book of Solomon. I went and got every single thing that I think I could get to find God. It was like, I'm going to find the old man and I'm going to make him pay for that. It was kind of like, I was almost like, I am going to find you,
Yeah.
but not exactly my definition of you. And that's what it turned out to be. It was like this energy of creation reaching out to have a relationship with me that I wasn't aware of. And I was kind of getting in my way. But so I have the I am experience. One of the bigger experiences is when I'm at work and I witness a woman fall down outside my store. She's in pain. I'm the first one that saw her. I go out there. Someone else comes out and I tell them, go call the ambulance. And I stay with her and I put my hand on her back. And I'm still not sure why I did it because I wasn't really that kind of a person at the time. But I did. And I put my hand on her back. And a couple of seconds later, she turns to me and looks at me in the face. And she's like, I'm all warm and I have no pain. And I just went, what the freak was that? And went back to my job after the EMT came. And I thought on it. With every other thing that was happening, these apparitions, these balls of light, this being coming back, this psychic stuff that I was trying to learn how to regulate and kind of stay focused on my job and what I had to do. So then I start to look in, is hands-on healing possible? Is this possible? Which I find it is, and I start to study that. And as I do, these beings continue to visit me, and they now start to teach me about my NDE. And they start to teach me that, of course, everyone's connected in the quantum field. The very first things they tell me is start to forgive people in the field and ask for forgiveness in return. This started to remove all the charge that was in my system from my toxic family system that I was in at the time. So I would notice that I would go back into a family function. I'd be like, man, I could care less what they do or what they just said. So I was noticing the effects in my body of what they were instructing me to do. And one of the very first things was forgive people through the field, ask forgiveness through the field. Don't worry about going to everyone you ever hurt or had an issue with, because some of these people you won't see again, but they are all connected in the field and you can go there. The next
So
thing,
just mentally, that person from 40 years ago, they're out there somewhere. Just send a mental thought. Would you
oh
please
yeah,
forgive me? And
yep,
let that just go out and do its thing.
yep, exactly. And don't think on it again. Just I send you the purest of love, like you are a little child, and
Hmm.
forgiveness. And I ask for the same return. Thank you for sharing time in your experience with me. And that's like a generalized release form. I refer to it as kind of. The next thing was they said, you have many multidimensional lives and you need to bring them all into the moment of now. That it was time to start speaking to them and binding them all together as one in the Christ. And this is where they start to refer to the sun as a literal sun in the center of my chest that is also like a star. Now, they start to talk about how the quantum field connects everyone, and that I can go to the field for my forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera. They start to tell me to call all of my multidimensional selves back into the moment now through the Christ to give them love and forgiveness. This began to keep me so much more present. I noticed I wasn't thinking about the past anymore. I wasn't worried about the future. And so the next thing was, they said this divine blueprint that you saw is an image to be rendered in your subconscious mind for you to navigate your nervous system and then interact with reality. You don't want to bounce off many fragmented images of yourself. That's where the multidimensional came in. It's that I had so many images of me in this person's mind and that person's mind and that person's mind, and I was worried about that forgiveness and that accountability instead of knowing I already had it. And so they began to tell me that I need to believe that I am the image of wholeness, and that will begin to reset or reboot my body, that I need to believe I am my divine blueprint. That this will also exit me from, they didn't exactly say the matrix, but they said the system that you were in. Because this image is really a compass to navigate reality from. And it's harder to navigate when your signal is split into a bunch of different pieces. And so they would tell me, like, imagine shining a flashlight at a mirror. Now imagine if that mirror were broken. Would the light come back the same as you shined it into the broken pieces? And this is what you're doing. And they explained to me that you are energy playing a character. This life force energy is already passing through you, and it's what you focus it on. And that's when they told me that I was the triangle, and that the Trinity was also my mind, heart, body, heaven, earth, sun. They're giving me all these references from Egypt to health to this to that, so that I could piece together that pretty much everything runs in a circuit and is a Trinity. However, our trauma and our attachments don't allow us to complete the circuit. Generally, we are short-circuited by storing trauma in the body. And now I'm going out on these alternate realities in the past trying to fix it. And that's where the trap in time comes in. So they teach me that the Trinity's mind, heart, and body, that it will help me realign this column of light that I saw after my Earth experience. But realign it with what? Realign it with truth. And that's where it came in, that you are the energy of love and truth embodied. You are energy playing a character that logged into this experience. As they're telling me this stuff, I'm having visions of literally being a being of energy, standing at a console with other beings, and then logging in, just going down this chute and becoming light into an experience. But I had that memory as well. There was another moment where I was sitting in my yard and sitting in the chair, and all of a sudden I start to feel lighter and lighter and lighter. And I'm lifted, whether it was out of my body or out of the chair, I don't know, but I was in this white light, and every pain that I had in my body just melted away. And that's when these beings, saying they were the Sidriel, they were some angelic race, that I was like a computer, but that I had allowed other people to program me, and that it was time to uninstall and reinstall new programs. And so that began the speaking to my system and my pain, that I uninstall you through the Christ, and I reinstall a program of divine love in your place. And you can feel the switch when you start to say it. Then they were teaching me about duality and polarity, and that Jesus was trying to teach us how to unify these two dual currents that we experience, and that we're actually in an alternating current where people are easy to get polarized. It's easy to get them angry. It's easy to get them easy to make them shift their emotions. because they're in an alternating current, but that the real wiring was a direct current, and they taught me how to unify positive and negative poles into one using my heart space, but also the 0 point energy, which I had never heard of. I had to go research it after they told me you have 0 point energy. That is the bridge between these two poles that you're experiencing. You're not able to control being light, being dark, being light, being dark, because you have no grounding in your divine blueprint. That's where you gain the control. When my identity is anchored in something the world cannot identify. And so they sent me on a quest to have no labels, to learn how to just be and acknowledge. And one of the first things they also told me was start speaking to your pain. Say thank you to it, but also inform it that it's no longer welcome. And so they guided me to speak to your pain like you would kindergartners, and you're the teacher. And so over the years, I started to have people come to me. Maybe you can help my friend. Maybe you can help them. I said, I'll try. And it just snowballed into people getting cured of food allergies they had all their lives, digestive disorders, tumors and cancers that they no longer needed surgery for. I mean, like a child in the hospital in Canada, and I still get Christmas cards from his mom because the next day he came off the ventilators, all his oxygen levels went up, and he went home. And so there was a lot of stuff like that I was kind of witnessing that really helped me with my own faith in believing that there was a divine intelligent energy in us and a part of us. And so, but all of it had to come together. It took me a little while to get there. I had to witness what happened in my body when these beings would visit me, and I'd listen to them, and what happens when I don't. And when I didn't, I was in pain. When I did, I was in heaven again. Then I was like, all right, how do I stay in heaven? I have to keep my thoughts there. I have to keep my heart there. And so they taught me how to rewire the polarity in my nervous system, how to set it up so that my pain signals get grounded out before they can reach the cells for expression. Same thing with my lower emotions. You go here. And it was just like data management and learning how to process data, emotional data, in a way that it should be processed so it doesn't get stored in my body. This is what started to free me from the pain. Like nowadays, I don't even take ibuprofen. I go hiking. I do pretty much whatever I want. And there was a time when I was frozen stiff, and that pain had my identity, and I had surrendered my life to it. And I said, this is just the way my life's going to be. I'm supposed to be in pain. Like I'm a martyr or something, and I had some price to pay. And I had a tumultuous childhood, didn't feel deserving of love. So I didn't even know what love was when it came around. And that was kind of scary. And to feel that love return to me, that's what started the I'm here to have a love story with creation itself, the energy of creation. The characters will always come and go. This is going to be forever for my entire time here. And I realized even the flowers, even the birds, even the trees, even strangers were also that source interacting with me to have that relationship. And so eventually I had to leave my job. It got too invasive, like psychically. It was messing with my mind too much.
At the GameStop.
Yeah.
Wow.
I just couldn't be around people. It was too much energy, and I couldn't control it. So I went into senior care, and I did Alzheimer's and dementia care, and that for like 8 years. And that's what really propelled me to the next level, was this service and witnessing who I was when no one else was around. And then realizing, okay, this is between me and God. If I'm able to witness my heart with no one else around and know who I am, there's some other energy here. And then I realized every single elderly person that I had interacted with was creator, and that I didn't need to label my creator, that it was something I felt. It was something that was me. And so that's where I'm thankful to say I'm a Christ follower, because Christ helped me get out of the pain of duality and thinking I am the illusion. But I don't necessarily have religion on my mind, because I don't jive with the guilt and the shame and the bondage. And so, two very different energies. So I
Wow.
became a Christ follower, and really just out there to have a human experience and a relationship with the energy of love and truth wherever I go. So that became me, and I did that job for a while. And it wasn't until I couldn't make a quantum leap until I was fully grateful for where I was. Because if my mind was in the past or in the future trying to escape, then I had no fuel. I had no fuel. The gas tank was empty for the spark to occur. I had to be fully present and thankful for where I was first, and that would propel me to my next timeline. And so I was very aware of that. And when it happened, I'm like, holy crap, I'm my future self guiding my past self in the present moment. And that's why I know half of the things I know. And so I was at work, I would touch something, I knew how to take it apart and put it back together. And I didn't know how I knew. I just knew. And so that lasted for a while. There was some really intense stuff that challenged my psyche. Um, and a lot of angelic stuff. I was driving home again one day, just beating myself up. And then I got the feeling to pull over, go over here by the river. And I did. And at this time, I wasn't really back in nature yet. I did it a lot when I was a kid. I pulled over and I went down by the river and I sat there and I said, oh, okay, God, we're here. What do you want? Where are you? I don't see you. That was me at the time, too. And I'm like, where are you? I don't see you. And nothing happened. And I said, yeah, that figures. And I went back to the car and I started the car, and I kid you not, the radio was on, so I didn't plan it. First thing on the radio, very first line, we're going down to the river to pray AA. We're going down to the river to, and I'm like, you son of a, I said, now this means I have to pay attention to everything around me. And then I started to discern more that was happening around me, trying to reach out to me through these synchronicities. I'm like, there's
Wow.
no denying that. The radio literally just answered what I was going down there for.
Right.
And so those things would occur over and over again. Family thinking I'm nuts. It's not going great with my family. All of a sudden,
Welcome to the club.
right? And I'm starting to feel like they don't understand. I'm not at war with you. I'm not judging you. I'm saying this is the root of the issue. And I
Yeah.
was talking about all these quantum physics that I didn't know before, quantum entanglement, and all these things that just got downloaded into me. And eventually, we broke up, and things happened. But that time and that space were probably the best years I had to myself to cultivate this relationship between me and the energy of love and truth for myself. And so there was a few other synchronicities too. And so there was one night where I'm in tears. My whole life is breaking down. I'm like, God, just take me now. Use me for whatever you want. I can't do anything right as a human. I'm like, show me why this is happening to me. Where is this stuff coming from? Why do I feel like this is familiar and I have a thirst for you, having never known you? So I did go out and get a cross at Goodwill, put it on my wall. That night, I knelt down at that cross and I said, show me what the heck is happening. And that's when I had the first feeling that past lives might be possible. I had a vision of me walking on a sandy road. I'm looking out of my own eyes. I see my tunic brown. I see my sandals. And I notice every glint of light off of every grain of sand. And it was vibrant, like that heavenly place. This is dull. When I'm looking out of my eyes, it's kind of dull compared to that. And so I noticed that, how vibrant it is. I look to my left out of this body that's supposedly mine, and I see two rivers, and I see one to my right. And I see that they converge in front of me. And I believe the vision ended. And I said, well, thanks, God. That told me a lot. And I looked it up on my phone, had the feeling, look up, where do three rivers converge into one? And I believe it was the Euphrates, Tigris, and Jordan. And there was something to do with the parting of the Red Sea. And I was like, well, I don't know who I was, but I was there. And it explains some of why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. That's when I first started to believe in past lives. Very first time. And so all of this stuff was a first for me. Didn't believe in extra dimensional beings. Didn't believe in uh, any sense of an intelligent creator. I thought there might be one, but I didn't know. And so I'm walking through it all as a skeptic. I'll let you ask any questions.
Did you, when we were talking on the phone yesterday, did you tell me there was a time where Jesus and an archangel appeared? Was it Michael was nearby? Was
Mm-hmm.
that you telling me that or somebody
Yeah,
else?
yeah. And quite often, I just had a client today. He's like, I saw a green energy, and then somebody who looked like they would be an archangel in my space, and then you were there with that. And so this is a distance session that this is
Right.
happening on. So my clients at first were starting to see Jesus. They're seeing angels, and I'm like, what is happening? I
What?
would have these people just come to me for a sprained ankle, and they'd be telling me this stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm just trying to process it. And honestly, dude, I'm still in the wonder of it all and the amazement of being able to experience things like that happen. But that was some of the very first stuff that happened. And then there was communication with Jesus. And then I can't tell you what it feels like to know you have the angel of death sitting in your back seat, riding along with you. But I did, and
Hmm.
I knew him well.
When
And
was that? Was that when the
this
I
was
am?
when I'm still going through the experience of reconnecting with the being from my NDE and these extraterrestrials or interdimensionals. So I
Okay.
knew it was the angel of death.
Just like on a regular day driving around, or that was at the same time as the I
Oh,
am
yeah, it was a regular day, but
regular day.
every day is weird. So I realized how humorous this angel was and how comforting and how calm. And then I realized they had to be. And I never take a one off. I'm not like, oh, I go take a Facebook test and I'm from the planet Remulac. No, I need to see things happen to where I can't deny it anymore. And that was the journey. I could not deny that there was something happening. And then I got to the point where I embraced it and I surrendered to it. And then they were teaching me about quantum entanglement, how to heal and reprogram, help people reprogram their subconscious mind and their cellular memory where their experiences are stored through the field. So I can do it on somebody in Asia. I could do it on somebody here if they're willing. That's the whole key. I can't give people my faith and my will. Those are two things I can't give.
I was just thinking about that, almost that exact thing this morning while I was having breakfast. Oh, the divine blueprint. What's on it or what's in it? Did you get like
Well,
it's like all the different possible paths of our lives and
yes,
what we're
it's
the one that we're going to
quantum.
take.
It puts you in a state of quantum superposition where all possibilities can become reality. And that state of quantum superposition and that divine blueprint is available through what Jesus did for us in the now. Now, we always had a divine blueprint. Was it as easily as accessible? I don't think it was. But this image allows you to navigate without becoming trapped in your emotions, without becoming trapped in the sense of time, which is a linear circuit. It's not an open circuit, it's flat and linear. And so we're able to break that linear circuit and open up the Trinity of and that singularity of possibility, which is that sun or my Christ in quantum superposition. And so they taught me a whole bunch, like how to learn how to speak to your body as if something was already finished, not negotiate with the biofeedback, to test my sense of self often, to say I already am. Do it in a mirror if you need to. What you're going to feel in return is called biofeedback. And then you can rewire that biofeedback through the magnetic field of your heart. And now it's no longer in your body. And so all the things they taught me were that my emotions and my lack of forgiveness and love for myself and my attachment to my opinion of my experience is what was holding the pain in my body. It wasn't allowing the pain to leave. Once I was able to discharge those emotions, the pain grounded itself out. I had no more pain. And so
Yeah.
this is a lot like two magnets where you're like this and you flip one over and it's able to push the other one. When I can reverse the polarity in my body, and they taught me a bit about neuroscience, and I went and researched that if you bring the nervous system up to a certain threshold of megahertz, I believe, up to a certain threshold of voltage, then the ion channels in the cells will begin to open and it will begin to release negative charge. And so I realized that I was helping people create action potentials because we had stored so much junk in our body that our experience went like this and the scales were out of balance of the polarity or positive and negative. That's why it's so easy for the negative to overtake us. And so, again, proper data maintenance, storage, of course, understanding that from the fact that I'm a being of energy who is going to program and then render a certain perspective of reality into being. So
The way I was understanding that is like if I am one magnet and my pain is the other magnet, if I can just reverse that, I just push it away.
yep, exactly.
Wow.
If I can reverse in the way that I am responding to it,
Hmm.
like I give gentle love to my
Hmm.
pain
Hmm.
and to my anxiety, fear, worry, stress, because I know it's coming from the inner child
Hmm.
who is a little stirred up, and the inner child's like the subconscious mind. And so the more online I can bring my inner child or my subconscious in agreement with my words, the more steady my system will be. This column of light won't be all wonky.
So
And
that's,
so
go ahead.
I was just going to say, looking into the wonkiness, I discovered most people have a brain to body signal because they generally want to bypass feeling trauma and admitting certain things. All of us were stuck in this brain to body signal that had us reflexing out into the past a lot or the future. And that the true signal to re-establish this column of light and complete the circuit flowing through me and everybody else was a brain to heart to body. So I had to retrain my nervous system. You send the signal to this field. I don't want to hear you in my body. But that was after giving it a little love. So it's like kindergartners. So you're going to give them love and then you're going to give them firm direction.
I really appreciate how you keep coming back to the idea of speaking to the pain like it's a little child, like you would speak, most people would speak lovingly. Because I've actually I don't go there regular at all, but I've sat in a church service where like pastor had the suit and tie and he was like yelling at somebody's problem, like trying to help the person, but like, I rebuke this thing in you and get out now and rah, rah. Like, does yelling at the problem help more or no? I think it seems like the gentle approach is better, if you ask me.
And so I approach that way because I know I need to load my weapon with something. What am I going to load it with? Well, I'm going to cultivate love. I'm going to cultivate thankfulness. I'm going to grow this energy. And then when I say I am, I'm going to send it through my system. And now it's like roto-rooter. I'm going to cultivate, send. And what am I sending? Truth of what I am, that I am the word in the flesh, that I'm already whole, that I was spoken into existence by the creator. So I'm going to
Wow.
make those firm claims in my nervous system, and things are going to start moving from those claims because that identity or that divine technology is already inside us.
So then you build up that identity so strong, let's just say like Gauss strength of a magnet getting stronger and stronger. So if something comes into your life that's not meant for you, it's really easy to repel it now, and you're
Yeah.
not attracting and getting stuck with that entanglement, which is then maybe tying into the archons, which I just call it negative spiritual energy or demons. Demons is such a scary word for so many people, but we just got to take the sting or the scare out of that word.
Yeah. And I had my references with angels and demons. And then I realized the only reason a demon would be around is because I gave them something to
Right.
work with. The responsibility's on me. I can't blame them for that.
Yeah.
And so I started to look at them like cats and dogs, just being cats and dogs because they were born cats and dogs.
That's funny.
I
I
started to
really,
realize it was about polarity. If I don't want to learn with love, I'll learn with suffering. Guaranteed.
okay. Yeah, I was thinking because we talked about how they feed on. There's this term called loosh. For the
Yes.
audience may not know this, but loosh is the whole idea that that's the food you're giving to these negative spirits that they want to actually. They're enjoying your suffering and they're taking part in that, but that's how they feed, so to speak, and we call that loosh. But then is the secret just to be happy, joyful, loving, grateful? So if I'm embodying all this positive or godly emotion, they don't get the loosh. That's how you win the game against them, right? You're just
But I would
staying in
have to
constant
embody it with truth.
with truth.
Yep, with truth. Like that's the salt and pepper. I
So you
got to
can't
do it
fake
with
it. You can't
love
fake
and
those
truth.
emotions. You have to really be
No.
it. Yeah.
Yep. In order for my thought to travel all the way down my chakras and hit my root and get the signal of, yeah, that's the way it is and it's non-negotiable. That's
Wow.
truth. That's grounding my conscious thought into my subconscious mind and having it agree. When it doesn't agree, like if any of the viewers have ever gone into a mirror and said, I'm beautiful, I'm successful, and they might have felt their subconscious mind say, I don't know about that, pal. That's where you're seeing the biofeedback that's stored in the subconscious, the cellular memory of the body. The more of that you get out, the less affected by anything you are. And that's why I seek to unionize my conscious thoughts with truth, because I want to travel that circuit unimpeded and know that I am rather than doubt that I am. That's where the healing came in. It's like throwing bounce in the dryer because you don't want the socks to stick together.
Mm-hmm. So when you're actually you worked at the GameStop and there was like I think the correct word is empathic feelings, like you were feeling others' pain as they were walking in.
Yeah, I was receiving their field and all their energy, and I was kind of sucking it in because there was an opening that had occurred in me. And during those first couple weeks, I couldn't sleep all that good. It was like this other energy in me, and it would just start up, and I couldn't go to bed. It was like anticipation, excitement. Um, and then that's also, I want to know when I started going back into nature, because I went there when I was a kid and it helped me regulate. So I started to go back there um, after work. And one day I went back there and I'm breathing and I feel this energy going up and down in me. And like an independent of me. Like I'm like, there's something in me.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt like excitement. It felt like love. It felt like all those things each time I breathed. And then that's when I realized, okay, there's another energy in me that I'm discerning reality from. And that's where I'm picking up all of this interference, if you will. So I started to look at distortion and interference and how to eliminate that. Eventually left that job because I was able to have enough clients to do what I'm doing full time, go around and speak at IANs and do different retreats. But I'm still doing it with like the wonder of a child, to
That's
be honest
awesome.
with you. Yeah.
That's so cool. I hate to admit this, but I've kind of been stuck in a rut for a few years. And it's time I get out of that rut. So there, I said it. But this is actually really helping a lot. So when your pain ever returns, like you stub your toe or you cut your finger, are you able to just neutralize that really
Yeah,
fast?
I can pretty much reroute that signal to the magnetic field so that it doesn't keep expressing itself on the cells over and over.
Wow.
But I've kind of trained myself how to do that. I would go in a really hot bath and I'd start communicating to my body. You're not actually hot. You just think you're hot. And so I was teaching myself, or they were teaching me, because they were literally telling me to do this. And I'm like, really? Turn the water on all the way hot and then get in? And so
Hmm.
I was learning that if I can override the most basic or strongest signals in my body, then I can override pain.
So
I
there's
can
nothing.
ground or zero you out. So if anybody knows about electricity, if you have a short circuit in your car, the lights aren't going to come on all that well. I had to correct a lot of that short circuiting, and then hook up the ground to the positive instead of holding on to it all day, projecting it on other people. I had to start pushing all the negative resonance into the field of the heart. And that's kind of what started up the signal of the singularity or the Christ in me that would ground out in my 0 point energy. It would literally ground the signal out before it could reach my cells. Same as when I was in heaven. And I knew after that experience that hate, suffering, it can't exist there. It's not that it doesn't, it can't, because it can't even generate function. And so they were literally rewiring me in that way, but taking me through the path of make yourself suffer a little bit and discipline yourself, and then you'll know how to do this.
Interesting. So, I think you gave them a name earlier, but I'm calling them your spirit guides. We're encouraging you to take a hot bath.
We can say Elohim.
Elohim.
They,
Yeah.
yeah.
The Elohim.
Which,
That's it's a beautiful word. Yeah.
yeah. And I didn't know who they were for the longest time. I
Mhm.
was always like, who was that and why me? And yeah.
But you start talking to some other NDEers and they remind you, don't forget you chose this life before you started it. So the why me kind of just dissipates when you realize that.
Yep. And I had people come to me who had dreams. And here, we'll get into some weird stuff in a second, but
Go ahead.
I had people who come to me and they would have dreams, different people who didn't know each other, that said I made some type of agreement to be awoken in this time period to serve during the ascension of humanity, which is like the collective subconscious getting cleansed. So we go through our own personal cleansing and growth. Now the collective is. And what the beings, the extraterrestrials who contacted me and were telling me world events were going to happen, they said I was in charge of some part of a grid that's going to help people connect their consciousness in a higher dimension so that they can ascend out of kind of like the maze or the matrix that they were in, or the prison or the traps or whatever. It's kind of all our own words, but so
Ooh.
that I was in charge of this grid that I was powering, and that I had a personal responsibility, and that it was time to remember that responsibility. And I'm like, whoa, I kind of do feel that. So that's where I got into really purifying myself and things like that. But these people who did not know each other came to me and said, yeah, I had a dream that of your NDE and how you made a deal during that NDE, that there's something would happen and that you would check out, and that this other energy would come in to serve during this time. And now, whether you call it a walk-in or not, who knows? But I can tell you, people that went to high school with me and knew me don't even recognize me anymore. They're like, him? But, I tell people Paul was murdering Christians, right? So it can be anybody. And again, I
Right.
don't need to label God or anything. Did you have a question on any of
I
that stuff?
did actually, yeah. The Paul connection came up in my mind earlier too, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
as kind of like an allegory for your life. Um, what world events do you see happening?
Do I see?
Yeah,
Well,
or have you
they're
getting
all
insight into?
possible. I don't see them happening. If I tell you what's going to happen, it's not going to
Then so
happen.
yeah, you're right. We mess it up. So
So,
I was wondering if
right.
you had any
We're
special
we're
insight.
so curious to go into the future. We
Yes, we are.
need to stay here now and understand it's all possible through quantum superposition. But the world events I see happening are obviously the change we're undergoing, but I see it. They very first told me you're going to see a lot of weird things happening in people, and that it was the entities that were feeling the pressure like a pressure cooker and rising, and the people are going to be neurally hijacked. They're basically having their consciousness hijacked and they're getting played. Um,
By an evil spirit or something?
you could say it's the spirit that they created.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Like a false
So,
persona that they're identifying with.
right. And so
Wow.
that those are the multidimensional aspects of self that I'd never healed, never unified.
They're
Uh,
not being the truest. They're not being their
what
truest, highest self, so to speak.
mhm.
Go
I
ahead.
see a lot of different world events happening because there's so many timelines. I see where we can go with the current state of war and other things, but I know war is not what it is to the divine. I see us, the disclosure thing, okay? That's going to be messy. It's not going to be met with truth. It's not going to be given with truth. Um,
UFO disclosure.
yeah, there's going to be a whole. I'm not excited about it because there's going to be a
Oh,
whole lot of false stuff to sift through.
I don't count on NASA to ever tell me the truth. Never
No,
a straight answer. NASA, never a straight
no,
answer.
that's great. And all of a sudden, everybody trusts the government. Oh, UFO disclosure's coming. What? You trust these guys now?
No,
And
yeah.
so that's me. Uh, but the world events I see happening are definitely along the lines of floods, and we've already seen it in the weird areas, earthquakes. There's going to be a little more pestilence and a little more famine. And I see it as the spirit of the four horsemen. And so I would have these people see Jesus and angels in sessions and all this wild stuff. And then they started telling me that I appeared to them.
Hmm.
I one woman signed up for a session. She goes, I signed up and you appeared in front of me and you put your hand on me and asked me why I wanted to work with you. And I was like, sorry, because I didn't even know it happened.
What?
Uh, yeah. And I still have the emails and all the recordings because
I
I
believe you.
save it.
I believe you. Yeah.
Yeah, I save it just to comprehend it, just like when I used to keep notebooks when
Yeah.
I was going through all that stuff so I could read it so that I could say, oh, this is real. So it felt real.
I saw someone who used, well, this is a little different from what you described, but reminded me of this. A few months ago, it's right after New Year's, I think. And New Year trying to turn over a new leaf, be a new person, set your
Yeah.
resolutions. And for me, it was just like letting go and forgiving. And someone that used to work for me borrowed a bunch of money as a cash advance, that never came back and did the work. And I was a little bitter about it. And I saw this person and they said, "Oh, I had a dream about you the other night." And right at the same time she told me that, I told her, "You know what? Forget about the money you owe me. It's all just forget. Don't worry about it. It's okay."
Mm-hmm.
And I figure maybe she knew whatever she saw in her dream, like it was like, was it a good dream? She said, "Yeah, it was a good dream." So I was like, okay, it had something to do with our interacting and
Yeah.
yeah. So that you just reminded me of that.
And we're doing so much when we're sleeping, we don't even realize it. We will go and do things that we will not get to experience in life because we want the experience of doing it.
I've heard
Literally.
I've heard about the spirit or the soul, like kind of astral projecting in a dream state. And some guy, I wish I got his name, but on social media video, he was describing you're in like a different dimension when you're in deeply dreaming or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. And I would have people who would come to me, they're like, you showed up in my meditation and you started telling me all this stuff about my kids and all, and it made me feel so much better. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. And I started to think, and there were other dreams, like a guy in New York. He's like, you came to me and you told me my roots were being uh, pulled out and that I needed to replant my roots here and this and that. And I'm like, I never even met with this guy. He
Yeah.
just messaged me through Messenger. So that started to happen. The tens turned into 20s. And then just me going to people and taking them into certain places so they could heal or teaching them about this. And I would find out later through Messenger and emails. And I'm like, I guess I'm just getting extra credit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just chalked it up to we're always doing stuff and we're all connected in the field and that
Sure.
I'm still working in the field, you know.
Yeah. Elohim can definitely work through dreams. I might just start saying Elohim from now on. I really like how you
Yeah.
said that. But
Well,
my
one really beautiful thing is they used to teach me to say, I am Elohim
I
to
am
my
Elohim.
pain. Yep. And that
Oh,
we were the angelic beings who fell in frequency and that now we're rising again with Gaia or planet Earth. That because the poles are shifting, get it? Reverse in polarity, the shifting poles.
what you're saying in terms of eschatology, if that's the right word, is like that's a hunch I've had for the longest time because it's written in the Bible that like one third of the angels were cast out of heaven. And then I always thought, what if we are those angels and
Yeah.
we're having this body experience? to learn the lessons and get back to where we originated from? What if we're that one third? And I think it stands to reason because every human being can have a rebellious side. Like why if there is no God, why would somebody be so rebellious against it? Right?
Yeah,
Like so it's like
exactly.
what are we trying to rebel against and what like why would you even need to do that to begin with if it
Yeah.
didn't exist?
That's what
So
I always say. There's no one more faithful than an atheist. I always say that.
I like
Nobody
it.
believes in something more that doesn't exist than an atheist.
I love it. Yeah. And they're gonna have their little stand at the farmer's market to prove to you how much they don't believe in it.
Yeah. And for me, I just learned creator didn't need a label. It was something I would experience day in and day out. And my experience can be either black nor white, that it was like a power source.
I love it.
In the same way that water can give or take life, that it was something that was coming through me. I was that triangle on the Pink Floyd t-shirt. It was my job to focus that light onto something worthwhile that I wanted to experience. And that happens in our thoughts and our emotions and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the supernatural experiences just, they threw me for a loop. Most were projections of me. So the light was coming through me and it was being projected. And now somebody turned on a light switch and now I could see this mechanism. I could see how many multidimensional aspects of myself that I had out there that I needed to clean up because they were blocking my energy from flowing. So
Wow.
again, no labels. No labels. If I don't have any labels, I have no labels to bounce off of in my mind as I navigate my emotions.
Well, you just answered the question I was about to ask because I had two final questions, and one of them was, how do you define God? And you just told me no labels. So I love it.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, to me, it became the energy of love. And I would notice it throughout moments in time, whether it was me with a stranger or me with a child or me with an animal, me with an elderly person. And then it would show up in the most random places. And I just wanted to learn to keep it with me and to have a relationship with the energy of love. And in order to do that, I had to stay authentic and keep with my truth. So
wow.
that became the salt and pepper. Is I can do the same thing 10,000 times if I and have it not mean anything because I didn't put love and truth into it. Or I can do something for a 1 minute or 2 minutes with love and truth that's genuine and have it change everything. And so that became the equation. Like I was here to have a relationship with the energy of creation itself, and other people will come and go all the time, but I don't want to lose sight of that background program where I'm here to have a story with my creator. It's not just about me finding a source of love in somebody else, because I grew up with that broken perspective too, until I realized you're not my source, you're not my source, you're not my source. And I had exhausted every source around me until I went to the source. Um, and that's found in everything.
Got it. One fun question, and then we'll talk about your contact info. But what was your favorite 8-bit video game from back in the day? If you have one.
Gosh, my favorite 8-bit video game. I mean, who didn't play Mario Brothers? But I'll go sideways a little bit and I'll say probably Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
Maybe
wow.
because it was so difficult that it kept us captured. It captured our. I loved Metroid as well. I would
Good
have
one.
to say Metroid was excellent.
Yeah. Legend of
Um,
Zelda guy? Legend of
yeah,
Zelda.
Legend of
Okay.
Zelda. Yep.
Part two is my
And
favorite.
And I think that's why I was able to get a lot of what I was taught about quantum reality and quantum physics and quantum holography, things like that. Those are words your viewers should look up. It's very interesting. Was because I had the video game manager background. They're like, hey, you're an energy that logged in to play this character. You're not the character itself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, this skin is actually interchangeable in a broader spiritual sense.
Yeah,
That,
and I'll go one step further and I'll tell you the body is like a salt and potassium battery that has positive and negative currents. I'm using the body like a device, hence the you're a divine instrument, but you're out of tune. I'm
yeah.
using my body like a device to interface from the energy in my nervous system. Yeah.
Great. Well, It's been a real pleasure. How can anyone that's a fan or they want to just talk and ask more questions or sign up for your services, how can they find you? What's the best way?
Sure. Yeah, you can get a hold of me through my site, trinityquantumhealth.com. That's trinityquantumhealth.com. I run groups. I do various things. Sometimes I go around and I do retreats, and I just like people to feel what I felt. And that's where it all started, man. And that's what heals them is that love. And it doesn't need a label.
But it's been a blessed conversation, and I pray that you have just a wonderful continued journey in life and much success.
Yeah, thank you very much. And same to you and same to all your viewers. Understand pain doesn't have a right to be in your body. That doesn't feel like free will. So your free will is to exercise your identity on that pain. And understand whatever challenge comes, whatever pain comes, that's to practice your identity on. And that is your space.
I miss you.